Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Realize Business Expert webinar. Firstly, thank you for joining us. My name is Jacqueline, and I'm the Brand and Marketing Manager for Realize Business. Realize Business, for those of you that don't know, we are a leading social enterprise, empowering people to successfully run a business through our webinars. We bring advisors and members together to share their expert knowledge in the interest of helping each other to learn and grow to their highest potential. So we've still got one more webinar coming up this year, and that is everything you need to know about leasing a premises for your business. I recommend that you have a look at that. Even if you have already signed a lease, you can learn a lot from our presenter, Catherine Blizzard. Catherine is one of our business advisors, and she is an expert in this area. So if you've got an hour free on Monday, the 16th of December, log into that. And you can find the registration details on our website, www.realize.business. And we have one more webinar coming up early next year that I just wanted to mention. So it's at the end of January, 22nd of January from 12 to 1, and it's called Making Debtor Management Easy. And that is from one of our expert members, Amy Chen. And Amy will go over the importance of structure and consistency. All small business owners are busy, but it's critical to become disciplined in this area because it's crucial to your survival, as is applying consistent process and pressure on all outstanding debtors to repay. So Amy has probably a 17-year background, I think, without having her bio in front of me, but she's been in this area for a long time, and Amy has been on either side of this. Amy is now a small business owner, but Amy used to work in the financial services industry for quite some time. So she's an excellent source of knowledge, and it's definitely worth signing into that one in January, especially if it's a slower time of year for everybody. So just before I throw to Kieran, I also wanted to mention that Kieran will be hosting a series of workshops in 2020. So Kieran is a regular presenter for us. She presents our Standing Out on Social Media workshop. So coming up, the first workshop we have for Kieran, just mention the price as well. They're $25 each for these workshops. They go for 3 hours and you will take away so much information. So on the 30th of January, the first workshop is Your Online Brand. Then we have Crafting Content on the 18th of February, Sustainable Social Systems on Tuesday, the 3rd of March, and Digital Storytelling on Tuesday, the 28th of April. So they're all standalone workshops, but they're designed to follow on from each other as well. So you'd certainly get your value out of attending each one of those workshops from Kieran. And we're very lucky today because she's going to present our top 3 successful strategies for social media for free for our members on this webinar. So just before I hand over to Kieran as well, I'm going to run through some quick housekeeping points. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box. You can bring it up on the right-hand side of the screen by pushing on the chat icon at the bottom of the screen or by pressing Alt-H. I might bring up your questions during the presentation at my discretion, but otherwise we'll have a big question session at the end, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions for Kieran. So now without any further ado, I'd like to formally introduce our presenter and hand over for her presentation, Kieran Zerner.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. It's great to be here today, and I'm looking forward to getting into our session today. So wherever you're tuning in from, whether you are taking a break, you're having a bit of a lunch break, maybe you're listening to me with your earphones on as you're driving somewhere, or whether you've just tried to put the children in front of the TV so you can tune in. Wherever you're at, it's great to meet you and to connect with you today. So I'm really looking forward to going through the session. Now, Jacqueline, do you want me to just run through, or is there anything else that you want to say before I get started?
No, thanks, Kieran. I'm happy for you to go ahead and yeah, everyone enjoy the workshop.
Awesome. Well, what I've done when Courtney and I and Jacqueline, the team from Realize Business, were talking about this, and we're looking at putting together some content, I kind of thought, okay, what can I throw into and pack into so that you get as much value for your 20 to 30 minutes as you possibly can. So get your notepads ready, because we're going to go through a whole bunch of content, and we'll also make sure there's lots of resources and things that we'll share with you as well. So I guess, as the girl said, as Jacqueline said, I have done quite a few workshops. I love working with Realize Business. And at a recent workshop, I was talking to a florist, an amazing business. And she said to me, look, I'm doing great things in my business. I'm starting to get growth. I'm trying to figure out this whole social media thing. And yet I just feel like there's so much clutter. There's so much noise going on. And it feels a little bit like this. It's almost as if, how in the midst of all of this noise do I stand out? And that's probably the question I get asked the most, is how do I stand out in all of this clutter? And so that's what I've been doing for the last, I've had my business full time, I suppose, for the last 3 years. And what I do is I help leaders and brands how to stand out without selling out in this age of online influence. And that has taken me through keynote speaking. So I speak to large audiences as well as the workshops. And I've also just written my very first book, which is called The Standout Effect, which kind of is like a handbook capturing all of that information in the one place. And but where it started was a bit like probably a lot of you. I started off a business. I had my second child and thought, okay, this is it. I'm not working part-time or with any, side hustle job anymore. It's time to start and grow my business. I had no list because I'd been working for about 15 years in corporate and state government roles, in comms and marketing roles. And so I had to sort of start from scratch in building a business, getting known, trying to attract customers. And probably like many of you, when you started, it's the questions come up like, I don't have time to figure this out. I don't know how. It's not that there's too little information, there's too much. And like, does it even work? How do I get value for the work that I'm doing? So these are some of the questions that I've been working through, and I wonder if you can relate. And I guess what I've seen in the last 3 years is there's both an opportunity and a challenge before you. So how do we take the good and work through some of those challenges? And where that comes through is this question, is can you stand out? And also, how do you stand out without selling out on what it is that makes you unique and what it is that makes you different, and ultimately that service that you offer to your clients? And so just as Jacqueline said, I've kind of break this into a few different elements, kind of starting off with, well, who are you as a brand? So when it comes to your business, what is it that makes you unique and so different to everyone else? And then how do you express that in the online environment? How do you know, what do you say? Like, what is the content that you should create? What is the content that you can share? And how do you kind of weave that into a sort of broader narrative or story over time that actually gets people to buy and to become long-term customers? Of course, there's a point of, well, how do I say it? What's the plan? How do I make it so it's sustainable? And how do I build that over time? And I think probably the most important is to who. Like, who is the audience? How do you know where they are? How do you know what their unique problems are? And how do you ultimately find them to cultivate those connections? So this kind of forms the basis of what it is that we look at. But I wanted to get really practical with some really practical solutions that you can take away for today and kind of zero in on some of the social platforms. Now, probably like me, you know that there is a whole bunch of social media platforms out there. Even what we're seeing with things like WeChat, Kakao, which is a Korean one, Line, it's Japanese, on top of some of the regular suspects. And, certainly when you're in business, you're like, oh my gosh, I should be on every one of them. How do I find a strategy for each one? What's clear though is that there are some that are more popular than others, that where your clients are more likely to be. And I would suggest that particularly if you are in that kind of time poor space, which let's be honest, all of us are, how do you actually focus in on some platforms that will give you the best value? And your decision around that really is, well, first of all, where are my clients? So where are they most likely to be? And then also, how can I focus in on one or two, maybe three, so that I can actually get and receive a value for the effort I'm putting in. And so when I tend to talk about work through different strategies, I often focus in on the top three: Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And that's what I'll do today, is to kind of zero in on a strategy. So let's look at some of those. Let's start with Instagram. I wonder how many of you use Instagram personally. How many of you use Instagram for your business? For those of you that don't know, Instagram is a photo sharing platform. It's got photos, it's got videos, and it is all about the eye-catching, the aesthetics, the things that attract and draw us in. There is no doubt that over the last 10 to 15 years, it has absolutely grown, and it continues to grow. So it is very possible that if your target market is likely to be on there. So if you have the kind of business that would work in this environment, what are some of the things that you can do? Let's use a bit of an example. I'm not sure about if you guys have heard of this one. It's called Buy from the Bush. This is such a great idea and account. If you haven't checked it out already, I urge you to look at what they are. Where it started was, as you know, in New South Wales, that we are in a considerable state of drought, and also then with the effect of the bushfires, there's been so much pressure on people living in regional communities. And so what started out as a hashtag, Buy from the Bush, has become a full-blown account. And basically what they do today is looking for profiling businesses that are in regional areas through an Instagram account, so people will buy. I think this is a cool example for us because it's basically like a retail store. So what are some of the things that we can learn from a business that is trying to sell something using Instagram? And I'll just go through a couple. As I said, remember, this is like the little tasting plate. So there's little pieces for you to taste from each section. And for this one, I think the key message here is, if you're really looking to find a successful strategy for Instagram, it is all about the look. And what do I mean by that? Like, if you look on their Instagram and you flick through, one thing that comes clear immediately is the striking photography. So the ability to have something that is eye-catching and that is attractive, or it draws in the audience, this is the goal. So for you and your business, if you're selling a retail product, if you have something that you can actually show and profile, have you considered having a photo shoot done, or getting some beautiful photos taken so that you can repurpose them and reuse them through your socials? I think the idea is this is like your shop front. So how are you presenting your product in the very best light? Using this, I love this tag. We can't think of a comment for this one. It's too good. Casual arm resting on head and all. You're trying to sell a dress, but how is the best way that you can take a picture and present that? And so thinking through that. So that could be for one of you, someone out there. What is the look and how do you present it? The second thing is, how do you piece that into the layout? So I often, when I'm talking about Instagram, I describe it a little bit like your Instagram wall is a bit like being in an art gallery. So, when you walk into an art gallery, it's how each piece is placed together on the walls for the overall effect. It's not about just one painting or photo. It's about how they work together, how they complement, how they tell the stories. One of the sessions, I actually had an artist, and he gave us some extra ideas about, sometimes it's even how the lines point together and the overall story it tells. So likewise, when it comes to your Instagram wall, how do you piece those pieces together, the photos together? So for example, if you're looking at from this is when I was starting out, to this, it's the idea of how your shop front draws the eye, how it helps things to stand out, how it features a product. What is the different ways that you could do that? If this is something that immediately you're thinking, actually, I could use help with this, then this is a great resource for you. katkaroy.com. She's also on Instagram. She does the best free webinar that I've seen, which kind of describes how vitally important the layout of your Instagram is. Because this is the starting point when it comes to Instagram. When people look you up, the first thing they do, look at your wall. So how is it the shop front for your brand? So that's it for Instagram. Let's keep piecing through. What about Facebook? Now, hasn't Facebook been in the news lately? You say if you were to Google Mark Zuckerberg, then you'll no doubt find Mark Zuckerberg and ... Lots of pressure, public opinion and politics. What we need to know though for a business owner is that Facebook is for friends. You know, that sounds like a simple thing. And yet Mark Zuckerberg and his team, the way they're gearing their so-called algorithms is more and more and more towards the end user of it, which is for friends and for connections. So what that means for us as business owners is we need to think about, they want to keep people on the platform. So keep people there and communicating with each other. So when you're posting and sharing content, how are you keeping people longer on the platform rather than sharing, say, a link to a website which takes people off it, for example? The other thing is, how do you keep people talking? So how are you creating discussions, asking questions, keeping a community feel? And the other thing is, how do you keep it about community and not about advertising? So this is the share, don't sell kind of environment. So I'll give you a few ideas of what I mean. A good example when it comes to Facebook is probably one of the best, Starbucks. Starbucks is one of the most popular accounts on Facebook today. And one thing that they do really well is that create conversation. So for example, if you look on their Facebook wall, it's almost like being in one of their coffee shops. You know, it's that warm, cozy feel through their photography, but then it's also the discussions. So here's some ideas that you could think about. Okay, so you've put up a post and someone's commented. Are you responding to the comment? So could you be meaningfully creating a conversation? So if someone says, I love that, I absolutely love a warm coffee on a wintry day. You're like, absolutely, what's your favorite flavor? You know, my gosh, it's so hot today, I could die for an iced frappuccino. It's like, okay, I love that. Where are you taking it to the beach or to the picnic today? So what could you, and so that's one thing, is responding to comments. And the second thing is, like, what could you post and share that creates the conversation? And this could be even if you took nothing away from this webinar today, this might be it for you, is what questions could you ask? Every time you post something on social media, are you asking a question? How can you create discussion through the things that you share? Let me take this a little bit further. One thing to create questions could be a piece of content that creates interaction. So what do I mean by that? So just take a look at some of these pictures. They've got like the art of espresso, and see how there's like an infographic. There's coffee recipes, tea recipes. It's things that keep people glued to the page. But I wonder, what could you create? What sort of infographic? So let's say if you had the florist, or could you talk about a video of, now that you've got, what are your favorite moments for sharing, favorite moments of receiving flowers? So it could be, I didn't think that through, obviously, when I said it. Where's your favorite places to display your flowers? And you could have a competition taking photos of the flowers. Like for this, if you were a food business, you could have a recipe one. That's a great one. Looking at infographics, so things that basically will keep people fixed and focused in on the things that you're sharing. So what could that be for you, I wonder? Wonder what ideas that you have. Another one is, of course, is that idea of keep creating awesome content. So what is it that you can be doing that keeps putting great content out there? What do I mean by that? So this person I'm showing you is a girl called Nicola Moras. And what she uses really well is Facebook Live. So I don't know how many of you are using Facebook Live, So basically what it is it's a feature on Facebook which allows you to broadcast live and allows comments to happen in real time. And of course, because it's a feature that Facebook loves to promote, when you use it, they also will push it out to a broader network. So one thing that Nicola does really well, so she is like a marketing person promoting herself in marketing. And every Monday she does this thing called the coffee run, where she jumps onto Facebook Live and gives a video where she answers a question or maybe gives a tip or talks about a struggle or challenge that a small business owner might have. This is really, I use this as an example as a services business. So maybe you have a services business like a physio. You know, how could you be using Facebook Live? Maybe it could be showing people stretches, you know, showing some of the the prevention aspects. So, you know, you're woken up in the morning, you're about to go to the office, here's 3 tips that I recommend for avoiding sore shoulders when you go to work today. And I guess just some ideas is, you know, could you do it on a regular time slot? So like the fact that it's every Monday means that her community knows that they're going to be there on the Monday. The benefit, of course, is that you're able to repurpose those videos to other sites, so like YouTube or LinkedIn. And don't forget that none of these things happen in isolation. So if you are doing something on a Monday, could you also be emailing out to your database to say, it's a coffee run this Monday, here's what you missed. Don't miss next week because we covered this. Or it could be a coffee run this Monday, what are your questions that you'd love me to answer? The top 3 questions and I'll give you a prize or something like that. So thinking always about how does your social media interact with some of your other marketing channels. So that is an idea. I wonder if you have any questions that will emerge around that. Taking a sip of water. Okay, so here is the 3rd strategy, using a platform like LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, for those of you, I'm sure most of you are aware of it, LinkedIn is essentially a professional context. It is a professional networking platform, and in my opinion is kind of the next frontier of social media engagement. It's kind of a bit of a favorite of mine at the moment. And I think when it comes to, you know, some of the stats around it, there's 600 million professionals plus worldwide on LinkedIn at the moment. It's interestingly the #1 platform for lead generation. So if you're either working in that business to business environment and also looking for new opportunities, then it can be a useful platform. But this is the reason why 4 out of 5 members are actually decision makers. You know, once upon a time, let's say you had a catering business and you wanted to find out who in a big organization you could sell your product to, you'd have to kind of go through the reception to try and get to the sales team or to the, you know, executive assistant of the CEO. Today, you can actually get direct to the executive assistant of the CEO by looking through LinkedIn. So it certainly presents an opportunity. And it's, you know, 44% makeover to 75K. So it suggests, I guess, the demographic. So if that is your demographic, that they're potentially on there. I think this is really the key though, that on LinkedIn, your brand has a human face. So even if, like, let's say you have, you know, red fragrance florist, if you are the florist, then you also have a platform and a profile which you can create through LinkedIn. And look at that stat, 10 million people in Australia. Like if you think about it, there's between 22, 24 million people in Australia. 10 million people are on LinkedIn. That is a lot. This is a vast network. And the majority of them aren't really using it properly, have not yet discovered it. So if you're looking to ride the next wave, then jump on LinkedIn. I'm just going to give you a couple of tips about LinkedIn. I think the first one is that the proof is in your profile. You know, when someone looks you up, what is the story that you are communicating through your profile? What is that sort of digital first impression that people have as they look at you? I think to kind of, you know, LinkedIn's kind of become like the business card, the coffee meeting and the website all rolled into one. So what are some of the different elements that you can be focusing on in LinkedIn? I think, you know, this is just as I said, how many tips you can get in one webinar, just to kind of go through what are the different elements that you can be zeroing in on to tell your story and to create that kind of credibility and authority. Here's a few ideas. What is the profile? So the image up the top. So you have that landscape image up the top. What does your picture say about you and your business? How often do you change it? Do you change it over time? Is it just a logo, or is it actually a photograph that can really powerfully communicate what it is that you want people to perceive of you? So for me, if I'm a keynote speaker, I want people to see me speaking to a large audience. Of course, the profile picture itself, if you've just got a photo up there, which is from, your last Saturday night out, you might want to consider changing it. Something that's professional, that's head and shoulders, so it's up close, so it gives people an immediate impression of you. The headline, what does your headline say about you? The default is that it will take your last job or your current job and put it up there. And yet this is a prime spot for you to lay out what it is that you want an audience to know about you. The summary section, this is one of my favorite sections, because this is basically your sales pitch. And of course, doing it in a way that is ultimately serving and servicing your ideal client. So what is it and how do you frame that up in such a way? And the final one is the bottom one is like, what are the different key pieces of collateral or websites or documents that further promote and endorse you or give you that sort of credibility for who you are and what you do. So proof is in the profile. And if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, here's my details. If you have a QR code or a QR reader, you can jump in and take a photo of that, and that will connect with you on LinkedIn. I've got a couple of guides which have tips and also about how to create that awesome profile. If you want to connect with me, I'm happy to share those with you. So the second one, and I think this is my final point, is again back to that content piece. How do you create content that helps you get known as an expert, or helps you get known as the go-to person, or the standout kind of in your industry and beyond? What is it that you can create? And as I said before, this is the piece where I think, sure, there might be 10 million people that have a profile, but how many of them are actually using it to connect and engage and actually meaningfully serve their audience, not just put stuff out there? So there's lots of different ideas, an educational video. This is a lot of what we get into in the content and digital storytelling workshops. Could you be doing a video of you, or a video telling the story of, the behind the scenes of your business? Is there practical information or tips? I'm a huge fan of not just flooding content for the sake of it, but actually meaningful stuff that's actually going to help and serve, and also then demonstrate what you know through what you create. So practical information tips that you've created, and also that others have created, that you're also adding your opinion to. And of course, inspiring quote. Like, at the end of the day, you're a human after all. So how do you show the human element of your business? So whether it's an inspiring quote or something funny, what is it that shows people a little bit of who you are through the quotes and things you share? On LinkedIn, kind of like Facebook, is it a short form post that you create? And could it also be something that you curate or share? Of course, it's always, how do you tie it back to what you do? Sharing a funny video or a viral video which has some meaning. I was totally flabbergasted. You can see that 34,000 views, sharing a video of like this guy doing this crazy thing on LinkedIn. So, but what that has done is it means there's 870 people that I can now connect with, which is fascinating. It's fascinating to see what people like to share and to watch and view. And of course, articles. So what is the content, or what are you known for? If you've already got a blog on your website, how can you also copy and paste and put this into LinkedIn? So the blog is one environment to keep it, and also you want to drop that content into a place where people already are. And there's lots of reasons why you do that, from positioning yourself as a thought leader, or known for what you do, particularly relevant if you're a services business. It's Google searchable. So Microsoft bought LinkedIn recently. So it means that when people Google your name, more often than not, your LinkedIn will be one of the top 5 that appear in the search. So what does your LinkedIn say about you? And of course that you get this chance for a call to action. So if you want an example, I put up a story today, this morning actually, and it was about my book. So I put a story which framed up an idea, and then at the end is like, do you know someone who this could help? So there's also that opportunity for a call to action. So I've given you lots of ideas, and when you tune into something like this, you can kind of be so overwhelmed and not do anything. But my question to you is, like, what's your one thing out of all of the things I've shown you? I've shown you some tips about Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. What is your one thing that you can take away from this webinar and to work on? Is it about even coming back to knowing who you are as a brand? Like, can you clearly express that? Do you know what that is and then how that might look? Have you got an idea of what your content will be? Do you know how to map that out over the year and to look at ways? And of course, that how do you say it? Like, do you have a plan? Do you have a way to save time to help you when you get so busy? And do you know who your audience is? So what are some of those things, I wonder, for you that might stand out? So what I've done in the last year is, while I've worked with, myself even being in that place of start out, I've then been curious about, okay, well, what takes people from that kind of 3-star place, which is where the clutter is, and takes them to those really standout brands, like the 5-star brands. And what I've just observed is there's a few other things that kind of come up, it's the style, the tribe, the authority, the rhythm, and the story. It's kind of where those 3 to 4 things translate into this. And so, and that is what my book has been all about. It's been about looking into the very practical details of what those elements are, and then going into, okay, so here's the idea, so how do you do it for your business? So look, I'm not sure if this is helpful for you or someone you know, but certainly if it is, I'd be delighted for you to access this as a handbook or a guide for you. It's really practical, it's step by step, and it's something that you can take home and work on for yourself. There's exercises at the back, lots of spaces for you to write. So this might be something that you're interested in. And it's also, I've literally finally figured out how to put it on Amazon. It is now on amazon.com.au, so you can order it through either of those ways. So that is it from me, from the official part. I look forward to answering some questions. That's my website. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Remember, I was talking about focusing your strategy. So they're the 2 of where I am, and I'd be delighted to connect with you. I would love to see you at any of the workshops, but I might flick over to you, Jacqueline, if there's any questions that we have.
Thank you, Kieran. What an excellent presentation, and I love how you covered everything really well, those kind of top 3 platforms, especially in business. So I certainly took a lot away from that myself, and I can see we've got quite a bit of engagement here already from the attendees, so thank you for that, Kieran. So I'm just going to give everyone a moment to type in some questions. I can see that we've already got a few coming through, so we might even jump straight into it, if that's okay with you, Kieran.
Of course.
Yeah. So we've got a question from Nick. What platform is best for the Generation Y and Z demographics?
Yes, good question, Nick. Thanks for that. So once upon a time, you would have been able to sort of say, oh, okay, so Gen Y, Gen Z, so they're definitely on Instagram, and that's where you should focus your efforts. Of course, that most of us know that today, as you saw that graph where they now have like 1 billion plus and are growing, it's kind of not as simple as that. I would say that probably on Facebook, everybody, there's actually, I think the latest stats is 2.8 billion, which is like 1 in every 4 people around the globe are on Facebook. So I think the way to sort of segment it is about, okay, so I think that if you're dealing with consumers, so let's say you're a florist, or you're a baker or a butcher, or you're a physio, and you're dealing with, you have clients that come in almost like retail clients. more often than not, you will find that they are on Facebook, and Facebook is a great place to connect with them, especially if you're based in, say, a local environment. So let's say you're a physio and you're based in Ryde, New South Wales. Facebook is a great way that you can use their advertising, so you can target specifically people that are in Ryde, that at a specific age demographic, that earn this sort of money, and you can target them really effectively using Facebook in that way. I would say for Instagram, like let's say I think it also comes to your product itself. So let's say if you are, say, a florist is quite beautiful. You can take some awesome photos of it. So it might, and also perhaps for you yourself, if you're kind of, someone that likes taking photos and visual things, then you would jump on Instagram, and then you could use it to sort of showcase what you do. So if someone says, oh, what do you like? Do you do wedding floral arrangements? You say, yep, absolutely. Jump onto my Instagram and use it. You can see it's like a showcase almost. And then so it depends if those people, if that makes sense in targeting those. If you have a lot of younger people, so let's say you really want to target younger people, then this is where you would look at some of those other platforms that are emerging. Like, say, if you've got people in your team that can figure out how to use Snapchat, or some of, everyone's jumping onto TikTok at the moment, making videos, this is where you'd be sort of looking at, if that specifically is your audience, then you want to target in on those ones. But that's a really long question. We could spend a long time talking about it. But I think really to flip back is to look at what type of business is it? Like, what sort of clients are they? Does that make sense?
Yes, and actually Nick has predicted, we have a follow-up question. So I have an online fashion label targeting Gen Y and Gen Z. Would you recommend TikTok over YouTube?
So for those of you that don't know, TikTok, it used to be called musical.ly, like Musical.ly, and it's started off as these short little videos where people would basically be lip syncing videos or be showing music videos, and they would kind of share it, and there'd be this sharing community, which sounds absolutely ridiculous to most of us that are over 30. However, it's become this viral thing. It's now become this thing called TikTok, which has short videos. So I would answer your question to say, Nick, is I would do both. I would think about, so YouTube has been around for a really long time. I would think of YouTube as your library, and I would store your content on YouTube and be consistent there. And then I would look at exploring TikTok. Who do you know that's using it? What could you try? What are some things that are kind of like fun and you could do that might like be a little bit sort of cutting edge or interesting? And definitely you could try, and because it's a newer platform, you kind of can ride the wave as being an early adopter. I would say if you have online fashion, you'd still want to consider Instagram, and also you'd be still on Facebook as well, because with the advertising beast that is behind both of those, they're very good at targeting new people.
Excellent. Thank you, Kieran. And I've got a question here from Matt. Matt wanted to know, with LinkedIn, can your profile get black marked or marked down through sharing external content? Which I've heard that through Facebook. I guess does LinkedIn work to the same algorithm? Do you know?
Yeah. So whenever we talk about algorithms, like the reality is, who can ever know? Nobody knows. So we all just have these theories, which is why there's no real clarity and certainty around the responses. What we see though is that LinkedIn, like Facebook, wants to keep people on the platform. So more often than not, if you say have a video, like let's say you've recorded a video of you talking to camera saying, hey guys, I just want to share with you the top 3 tips that I've learned in physio this week that you might want to try, stretches, blah, 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 something like that. So you've just recorded a video and you've put it on YouTube. Would you share the YouTube link on LinkedIn? And would that not so much black mark, but mean that less people see it? And the answer is yes. What I would suggest is I would put the video on YouTube, because that's like your library. and it's good to be there. And then I would upload the video directly onto LinkedIn, and then you will find that your engagement like amplifies out of control by comparison. So if you were to compare the link to the YouTube versus your uploaded video, it would be so much higher engagement. So that's kind of the way that you would do it to avoid that. There is still people who are sharing articles. So let's say, because it's a great way to curate or share content. Like let's say you shared, I don't know, if you were in economics and you shared or finance business and you shared, here's the latest interest rates news article from the SMH, but then you added, here's my opinion of it. And then you jumped like, what do you think? And there was all this discussion that happened as a result, then that will go up. So people, it won't matter that you've linked to an external site because there's been a discussion and engagement. So that's kind of my long-winded answer to say, upload where you can. It's okay to share external links, but always look for what's your value add, what's the discussion that you can create or the question that you can ask as well.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. I also got a question here from Stephanie, speaking back to the Boomerang and TikTok. So she's asking, Boomerang and TikTok are apps or add-ons to Instagram and Facebook that make videos?
Good question. So how I showed that platform slide where there was like Facebook, Instagram. So TikTok would be like one of those. So it's its own platform now. So it's like YouTube is a platform, TikTok is a platform. Boomerang, which is funny, weird semantics, but Boomerang is like an app. It's a thing that you can do in Instagram. It's kind of like just more of a feature that you can use. So Boomerangs are great as a video because you can always, even if you do one at Instagram, you can still use that as a video which you upload direct to say LinkedIn or to Facebook or anywhere else. So Boomerang is more like sort of a video setting, whereas TikTok is a platform. So ask any young person or do some Googling on it. There's quite a few articles out there about it. And you can come along to the content workshop, where we talk, and digital storytelling, where we talk a lot about making videos.
Cool. We also had a question from Jeff. Jeff was wondering, and we could send you some instructions to this, Jeff, but Jeff was wondering, how do you link names and change text on LinkedIn? But we can also send you a screenshot on that. Did you want to answer, Kieran, or?
Yeah, I think that, so LinkedIn as a platform is quite similar to Facebook in a way that when you are adding on posts that you can tag people in it using the at symbol, and also using hashtags as a way of identifying or finding content or categorizing content. So what I have found, so that's a great strategy, is like, so let's say you've gone to an event, you take out a photo and then you want to share it with lots of people, so you tag them in it. So you can definitely do that, and that's a great strategy to use. I have found that there is, if you've put a post up, you can go back and edit it, and sometimes it is a bit temperamental. So if you found that, hey, I can't tag it today, I had literally had someone say that yesterday, sometimes you need to refresh or try a different device. So it can be problematic, I've found, on LinkedIn sometimes. Yeah.
Excellent. Another question from Nick. Would you recommend creating a closed community on Facebook so that you can target your audience for your product service, or have an open community where anyone can join in and risk being trolled?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's always the fear, isn't it? That if you have an opinion about anything, that you're going to get the attention of these unfiltered trolls. I absolutely think that groups are fantastic. So I'm trying to think of the topic where I write about that in the book. Facebook groups are great, where you have Facebook pages and Facebook groups. So a Facebook page is like a business page where you're sharing content. You might also want to create a group at a certain time. So let's say, for example, and both are important, because if a Facebook page is almost like your shop front, It's where you're putting content out and it's searchable. However, like let's say for a fashion store, if you had loyal members, they might want to join your group. And in the group, the purpose from a business side is that you're basically creating a warm audience that you can keep selling to, and a tribe, a loyal tribe. And from their point of view, they might tune in because they're interested in, you get the first sale, first notice about sales. They might input into new upcoming season range, do you like this color or this one? You might, be particular around a cause or something. So groups are really great. And also what has been observed with Facebook is that the content that happens in groups kind of gets pushed up the feed. So people will see what you put in groups. So groups are a good strategy. And it's good in a group because if you do have someone who's trolling, then you can ask them to leave. So you kind of have a bit more control. Whereas when it's on your Facebook page, you can't really ask them to leave.
Excellent answer, Kieran. Too. One thing with LinkedIn as well, when you publish LinkedIn content, you cannot delete comments. So again, with that trolling, although it tends to be less common on that platform, but you don't have that capability.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like the thing on social media is always something you're like, oh right, I haven't thought about that. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that. What you can do on LinkedIn.
And Nick is also asking if you have a promo code for your book.
If I have a promo code, members. Cheeky smile. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that.
That's all right. I think it's a good price, Nick. So I recommend if you like Kieran's content today, definitely reach out to her and look at buying her book, because it covers everything in a bit more detail, doesn't it, Kieran?
Yes, it just goes into. I used to think it's funny when you promote a book because you're like, oh, buy my book. But I realized when people say, oh, can we catch up for coffee? And can you help me? And I realized I can't help you in a coffee. So it's funny when you put all of this into it's all the resources, everything I know is contained in the pages in a practical way. So hopefully that's useful.
Yeah. And we've got, I guess I have a question for you as well. And I get asked this a lot, and I know that you get asked this a lot. How frequently would you recommend people post on the various platforms?
So it is a very regular question. And I think, and the answer here is that the best amount of, sorry, I was just distracted by my slides and I accidentally hit the button. So the most frequent, so how frequently you should post is as often as you can sustain it. So let me explain. So let's say if I was to say, okay, so the benchmark is on Facebook, you should post once a day. And then for some businesses, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. What am I going to say? And it's like, then they'll never post for 3 months because they've just burnt themselves out and trying. So depending on where you start. So if you haven't posted at all, okay, so your goal is to try and post consistently 1 to 2 times a week. That's where you start. Once you get to 1 to 2 times a week, then you might go up to 3 times. Once you get to 3, then okay, let's start with once a day. Once you get to once a day, I'd be looking at how do you amp up the content, create more videos, look at creating more creative sort of stuff. So that would be my response around that. When it comes to the different platforms, as a general rule, I reckon once a day is probably a good thing to try for. Whereas LinkedIn, you might try for, say, 3 times a week. That might be kind of where the sort of standards are. But yeah, I just sort of couch that in saying what you want to do is what you can do consistently.
And do you know the secret? Is there a certain time of day that works better on any of the platforms?
Yeah. Well, there's a sort of, if you were to imagine a day and you were to break it up, so there's the sort of before work time, so 7 to 9. There's the morning tea time around 10 o'clock. There's lunchtime, which is 12 o'clock. There's afternoon tea. And then there's coming home from work time. And then there's evening. So with those certain blocks of the day, where is your ideal audience likely to be engaging with your content? So for say LinkedIn, if you've got people that are in that professional spot, I'll be looking at, okay, well, it's probably when they're traveling to work. So you want to be posting before 9 o'clock, that sort of 7 to 9 a.m. time is sort of a sweet spot. If you're looking at Facebook or Instagram, I would often suggest try starting with 12 p.m. in the middle of the day and sort of see what sort of engagement you get. That's a good sort of place to start. If you've got, say, you're dealing, like maybe your ideal client are parents of young children, the reality is they're probably not looking at their phone until, after the kids go to bed. So you might want to post around 8 o'clock. Or if it's young people, the same. When are they looking at their phone? Well, the answer is probably all the time. Let's not kid ourselves. But you might want to look at those popular times like lunchtime, coffee break, and later at night. So that would be my suggestion.
Excellent, thank you. And Nick would also like to know, should you repost the same content on each platform? Is that a good strategy?
So well, first of all, you want to be thinking about, what's the purpose? So what is the sort of intent or reaction you're trying to get from the content that you're sharing? Would you repurpose it? I probably would, but I would kind of think about, okay, so if I'm on Facebook, posting something on here and I want to create a bit of engagement or a question. Whereas maybe when I do it on to LinkedIn, it would maybe have a different sort of question. So you might just sort of change the comment or the caption, sorry. Or if you think it's great for both of them, like let's say it's a sale. So if you've got a sale that's going out, then kind of my little trick is I would just do it, but not at the same time, so maybe you share it on Wednesday on Facebook and you do it on Friday on Instagram, or you do it a week later, or, you kind of shuffle it through, but you may not do it at the same time, unless it's a broadcast announcement, which you want to go out at the same time on all platforms. So my answer is a bit vague. Think of the platforms first, and then if it is relevant for all of them, I would kind of shuffle it up a little bit.
Thanks, Kieran. And we probably have time for maybe one or two more questions. So if anybody has anything that they'd like to ask, just quickly type that into the chat box for us. I have one more quick one. Are there any quick ways to grow your audience?
Yes. So the answer, again, I often get asked that one. So I want to, reach, especially when I started, like, my gosh, how do I get to lots of people and get them to know about me quickly? The correct answer is that it's a little bit like the Pantene principle, for those of you that remember the ad from the 90s and early noughties, that it will happen, but it won't happen overnight. And I think that's the same case when it comes to, anything in business and certainly social media, that it will happen, the growth, and yet it happens over time. It happens through being consistent, creating great content, cultivating a community, and doing that over time. At the same time, though, there are certain things that you can do to try and get those sort of growth hacks, I suppose. So one of the ways would be to, like let's say on Instagram, for example, maybe you do have a beautiful profile and you're creating great stuff, but no one's looking at you. Okay, well, who are the audience that you want to be connecting with, and start going to find them. So you might want to just, and this works for LinkedIn as well, and also Facebook, is, well, who are the top 10 clients or ideal people that you want to connect with, and write their name down, and then actually go to their accounts, whatever platform, and start a conversation. Start, if they've put up a post, comment on it. And then all of a sudden they start to notice you, and then you start to get this organic sort of growth that happens. The other thing you might want to look at is, who are the top 10 most popular accounts in your industry. So let's just take me, for example. If I'm talking about branding or social media marketing, I might think of, say, Gary Vaynerchuk or Seth Godin. I might look more locally at some popular people, and I go to their accounts and I see I could start commenting on their stuff, but I also see who's following them and start following those people, because they're people that are likely to also be interested in the type of content that I share. So they're like a couple of little growth hacks, I suppose, that you could do. It really is that the important strategy, that's why I call it tribe, is that whole point of going out to find people and connect with people is a vital strategy in growing your social media, because otherwise if no one knows about you, then you can't grow.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kieran. We've got a couple more come through. We could probably do one more just really quickly. There's one, an interesting one here from Stephanie. How do you know who to block? As sometimes you do get some random followers.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh gosh, it's also, as I said, the more you grow, the more random people and probably machines that you attract. Like just the other day, I think I had an email come through, an Instagram message of someone asking if that he would like to be my sugar daddy, and I was like, wow, that is so weird and so random. So yes, and I did block that person. So what is it that would make you block someone? I was like, oh my gosh. And he said, would you like to be my sugar baby? I was like, oh my gosh, that is so weird. So unfortunately, you don't know who the weird people are until they do weird things. So they're the ones that you can safely block. And I guess part of it is there's also a whole bunch of people out there who are probably using like those bots, which means they go out and, they put in the tags of things that they want to follow, and they little automated responder is going out and putting comments on there. Those, random comments you get, like great post, or I like your stuff, I like your image. There's lots of those people out there. What I find though is that there's usually people behind those bots. So if someone says great post, if you were to jump on and say, hey, what did you like about it? Then that person is going to get the notification, and then they come on and chat, and then you actually could win, an engaged audience person from that. So I wouldn't shy away from those automated responses. There's actually a person behind those more often than not. But yeah, there are sort of creepy people. And in terms of that, I can see the question, can you unblock them? Yes, there is usually a list, and you can look them up as well to go into that.
Yeah, and those bots, they do give you reach regardless, don't they? So if they are inoffensive, sometimes they're doing you a favor.
Yes, yeah. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Kieran. We might have to end it there. So we've reached our hour for the webinar. So thank you very much. It's been really insightful content, and the Q&A has been excellent. So thank you for being so generous in answering and for your time today. Just a reminder, Courtney will send out some links, some follow-up links from Kieran, and some follow-up links to our webinars and Kieran's workshops that are coming up next year for anyone who would like to register for them. Also on your follow-up email will be the webinar. So this will be recorded, and you can go back over anything that you might have missed during the session. We also encourage you, on the topic of social media, I just want to also encourage you to follow Realize Business on social media if you're not already. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and thank you, Kieran, and Instagram. So these are the links here on the screen, but again, Courtney will include that for you on your thank you email with everything else. So yeah, thanks again, Kieran. It was an excellent workshop today, a webinar. It really was like a workshop. And so wonderful content, and I appreciate everything that you've given to our members today, and I can see that everyone has enjoyed it, and they're thanking you too in the chat box. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and again, thank you, Kieran. Is there anything you wanted to say quickly before we say goodbye and end the webinar, Kieran?
No, all good. Look forward to staying in touch. I love hearing your stories, so I will definitely interact with you over time. Thanks for having me, Realize Business.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kieran. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. And I look forward to seeing you all online on Monday and hopefully next year for our webinar series.
Awesome. Thanks.